Alrighty, everybody, welcome into another episode of the Full Press Saints podcast, a part of the Full Press Coverage Network. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC. Once again, it is your host, Alec, here joined by my man, new dad, if you will, Dayton. I mean, look, Dad, you've had a very busy / hectic / new experience. The experience is full of weeks. Yes. So, I mean, how's the little kid? Everything good with you guys? And how does it feel to be a dad now?
Yeah, we're very lucky. Everything went very smooth. It has been a crazy and obviously, stressful, tiresome past couple weeks now, but couldn't have gone better. Healthy baby. Ferris Brown, welcome to the world. She's been doing great. I actually got a pretty good night's sleep last night, which I'm very lucky for. We've been great. I am excited to be back and recording, though. I'm glad I have time. Shout out to the state of Washington for giving both parents, both mothers and fathers, paid time off for their children. As long as you obviously, work full time or even part time, you can get some good paid time off to bond with your child for the first couple months of their lives. So I am very fortunate to have that opportunity. I'm just excited to be back and recording. This is actually earlier than I thought I was going to be able to come back and come back on the show. So I'm glad everything's going really smooth. I missed you a lot, Alec, but episode with Dylan the other day was fantastic to listen to. So
Dylan's always a treat to have on. He always is. And now I'm part of PC Gang. We got the whole setup over here.
Great setup.
Awesome. We'll have a bunch of content dropping out, articles, podcasts. Now we're gonna get really going here. I'm super hyped to have you back, dude. I missed you last episode. Yeah. And
thanks, man. Me too.
Give me one word to describe being a dad so far before we hop into today's episode.
One word. Diapers.
That's the word. Lots of those.
That's really the only bad part about being a parent so far is, and it's not even really bad. It's just like the thing I look forward to the least. But this is and the thing is, what a lot of parents probably won't tell you. This is kind of the easy, quote unquote, easy stages of the baby phase, because once they start to get 2 to 3 months, it's a little more. They are smarter and know that they can whine to get their way a little more than babies do now. Like, they understand they can be spoiled, whereas newborns this fresh, they don't fully understand that. Like, if a newborn, cries, they need something. But if a 3-4 month old cries, it doesn't always mean they need something. They just want either attention sometimes, or they know that they can get you. So, very lucky I'm in the easy stages. The only thing I don't really look forward to is changing the diapers. But, I mean, that is...
It's the price we're willing to pay for the child, right?
Absolutely. It's really nothing in the grand scheme of things.
So, we missed a lot of key Saints news and news related to the Saints. First off, officially, as of yesterday, over the weekend, it was official on the translation wire. Drew Brees officially signs retirement after 20 years in the NFL. So, kudos to that. He is officially retired as a New Orleans Saint, as he went on the reserve retired list. And of course, the biggest, probably the most talked about wide receiver in the NFC South, besides Mike Thomas and Who Dat Nation, Julio Jones, is now out of Atlanta. He's in Tennessee with A.J. Brown, Tannehill, Derrick Henry. They sent over Julio and a 6 for a 2 and a 4, I believe, from off the top of my head. I mean, obviously, we've seen the great battles between him and Marshawn Lattimore, but at the same time, before Lattimore, we saw him absolutely terrorize our number one corners. So, Julio's out. What are kind of just some general thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, Julio leaves against the Saints over his career, 3 touchdown catches, 6 fumbles.
Love it.
So that is a positive note to take away for the Saints. I mean, obviously we were able to keep him in control, especially after Marshawn Lattimore got here. Doesn't mean that the Falcons still didn't tear us up, but Julio himself was, able to keep in check. He still had a lot of yards against the Saints. He still had high yardage games. It just wasn't, he didn't find the end zone often. I mean, Julio, throughout his entire career, has not been an end zone guy for whatever reason there for the Falcons. We'll see if it changes for the Titans. It is funny that the Falcons hired the Titans offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, as their new head coach a couple months later, Julio Jones is then traded to the new head coach's old team there in Tennessee. I like the fit there in Tennessee. You have, if Julio stays healthy for, all 17 games or even 14, 15 of those games, and A.J. Brown can stay healthy, again, he played with like a broken leg for a majority of last year, which is just crazy. But if both of those guys can stay healthy, that is by far the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, especially when you factor in, age. Julio is the wily veteran, first round pick, been in the league for a while. A.J. Brown is now becoming the superstar receiver that we're seeing out of him over the past couple seasons, still very young. So I'm excited to see these guys work. Of course, so like, what do you do against these guys? Like, you got to load the box, right, for Derrick Henry, but then you also you got to double one of those guys, either Julio or A.J. Brown. So the dynamic for the Titans, if Julio can stay healthy, is so much worth that second and fourth they gave up. Like, that's really nothing, really. If you consider what Julio can bring to the table for your team, a second and fourth is nothing. Now, the cap hit, $15.3 million this year for Julio, is quite a bit. Lucky for the Falcons, they had to trade Julio to free up that cap space to sign the rest of their draft picks. That's how cap arrested they were at the time. But they were able to free the space. The Titans are able to take on that space again. They gave $10 million to Jadeveon Clowney for 1 year a season ago. Like their money really isn't that big of an issue, even with Ryan Tannehill's big contract. So overall, I mean, the Titans definitely won this trade. I think unless Julio is just not able to play even 50% of the games during his time with the Titans, even if he's able to play just slightly over 50%, I still think they won the trade just based off his impact and that offense. Are the Titans favorites in the AFC now? You could argue that. I mean, the Chiefs are obviously very good, but the Titans, the Bills, even Cleveland, the Browns, they're very good teams now. So it's going to be competitive there in the AFC, and the Titans just took one more step towards that. I like the trade for the Titans. The Falcons, I mean, I guess they got the most they could have gotten, but Calvin Ridley time, Kyle Pitts time there. Matt Ryan can still somewhat sling the ball, so it's still a good offense there for the Falcons, but I think overall, more than anything, I mean, they needed the cap relief, is really what it comes down to. They needed that cap relief. They were kind of tired of the injury questions with Julio Jones throughout his last few seasons there, but the guy is still a baller. Again, they gave up so much just to draft him back in 2011 that it seems surreal that he only played 10 seasons with, or I think it was only really 9 seasons with the Falcons. 10 years, 9 seasons. I think it was 10. Either way, though, that's still a small amount for how good of a player he is.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame guy. So Titans win this trade for sure, I think. Lucky for the Saints.
And we still put the Titans this year.
Yes, that's the other thing, right?
We will get Julio versus Marshawn this 10. Year. Yep. And to your point, Dayton, about Julio being a guy who maybe didn't find the end zone all the way. Julio Jones averages 95.6 yards per game through the entire career. That is the most in NFL history, ahead of the likes of Odell Beckham, Calvin Johnson, Antonio Brown. So, hey.
Michael Thomas is up there, too, if we're also talking about career
right
average
behind,
yards per game.
Right behind
Michael
AB.
Thomas is like 85, which is awesome. So
yeah, he's at 83.3, AB's at 86, Megatron 86.1, Odell 90.8, and then Julio 95.6. So
it's crazy.
He's now out of the division, thankfully. And let's swing it back to the Saints here, of course. We had some great content, come from the Saints, the media days up there at OTAs. Several guys like David Onyemata, Marcus Davenport talked, Marshawn Lattimore, Traquan Smith. Just lots of great tidbits from these Saints players, and really kind of the direction this team's going to be heading into this year, which I still believe is a very competitive team, despite the questions at quarterback. But let's talk about Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk first. These are, of course, our 2 top picks in 2017. Both were exercised the 5th-year option. Marshawn, it's really funny because I think we all thought, right, the way to get, to gain more cap would be to, extend one of those 2 guys, right? That was the idea, was to extend Lattimore or Ramczyk and free up some cap. Instead,
or Marcus Williams.
Yeah, or Marcus with a tag. And instead, the Saints basically shaved Marshawn Lattimore's $10 million this year with the 5th-year option, shave it down to $1 million, and then pay the rest out in bonuses. Which basically means they give it all to him right away. And it's just on the books with 4 more voidable years tacked on. And now they have a little over what 7?
I think it was a little over 5 after we signed the rest of our draft picks. So.
Yes. So with Marshawn Lattimore, let's talk about Marshawn Lattimore. This is going to be a big year for him, obviously, right? He had some inconsistent moments last year. I think that's fair to say. Then, of course, he had the DWI, or not the DWI, the whole gun and crotch thing happened in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who really he's out there to prove to himself and prove to everybody else that he's still a top corner in the NFL. He mentioned that during the media availability that he still sees himself as a top corner in this game. So what do you think? Is this a big year for Marshawn Lattimore?
It better be. I mean, this is and the thing is, what the Saints is, he could sign an extension like the day before the season kicks off. Remember that happened with Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara signed his contract extension the Friday before this Sunday.
Demario Davis too.
Demario Davis as well. So the Saints like to push this out. As I've been talking about all offseason is, they're going to let this go for as long as they possibly can because both sides obviously want the best deal, but the Saints need to shell out a lot of money for both these guys. So yeah, I think it will be a big year for Marshawn Lattimore. If it's not a big year for him, then I think the Saints are going to sign him to an extension regardless, like before the season starts. But if they don't, and he has a season he had last year, I don't know. It's going to be tough because the Saints could definitely just let him test free agency. It's just really, really tough. He needs to be extended though. It just might be the asking price might be much. I think Ryan Ramczyk is probably going to end up getting more money than Marshawn Lattimore just because of how the tackle market has been set. That worries me a little more in terms of financial stuff, but also Ryan Ramczyk is the type of guy who will not take as much money as he possibly can. Like, he just seems that kind of guy. Also, Ryan Ramczyk is, 27. I mean, it's not like I think he's going to be 28 by the time the season rolls around. So, it's not like he's just this younger guy who's going to, be in the prime of his career during his contract. I think he's in the prime of his career right now.
And I believe Ram said that he was not going to let this contract get in the way of him participating in the offseason programs.
Which is great, and especially because, there were a lot of rumors coming into the draft when he was drafted that he didn't love football. He's one of those guys who was just kind of more casual about it and wasn't that passionate about it. But if this guy is willing to, put his body on the line day in and day out for a team without any guaranteed money for his future, that's a guy who loves his team at the very least, and I think that he does love football. So that's great stuff. Going back to Marshawn Lattimore, the funny thing about when his contract did get restructured, the announcement first by Saints media was that the Saints had signed the rest of their draft class. And we're all going, wait, how did they do that? With what money? How did they? And even Amy Just and Nick Underhill were like, yeah, I have no idea how the Saints did that. But according to the transaction wire, they signed the rest of their draft picks, so they clearly have the money. Lo and behold, come to find out, Marshawn Lattimore, because a lot of people were thinking that one of those guys had to have been extended. How do we not know this information by now? Well, like you mentioned, Marshawn Lattimore ends up getting his contract restructured, pretty much takes the base pay down from, I think it was 11 down to $1 million. Rest is just signing bonus or voidable years. So a lot more cap manipulating by the Saints front office, which is nice. But again, these are just kind of band-aids to help the Saints get stuff done this season. They need to lock down their future. They need to get Ramczyk in. They need to get Marcus Williams extended. They need to get Lattimore extended. And then they can really focus on important stuff next season instead of trying to fill voids right away because if Lattimore isn't on this team next season, we need a CB1 and a CB2. Adebo's going to be, as good as he can this upcoming season, his rookie year. Will he be ready to be a CB1 next year? I don't know. So if Lattimore's not there, you're kind of back to the drawing board we were during those 3 straight 7-9 seasons back in the early 2010s. So yeah, this better be a big year for Marshawn Lattimore. Because I think that he will get paid before the season kicks off. But smart restructure by the Saints. I'm glad they got it done to sign the rest of their draft picks. But again, these are just Band-Aid moves. We need some serious extensions and money moving. So
yeah, and to your point earlier about the Saints, figuring out what they need to do down the road. This is Taron Armstead's last year too of his contract, and
that's right.
You don't want to go into the offseason with both of your perennial All-Pro tackles on the market.
Yeah.
Because you can't bring back both.
And Armstead is going to command money because, he's one of the best left tackles in the league, and you just saw the money Trent Williams got paid at. 31. I don't know how old Trent Williams is, but he's not young. So, tackles can get, if you're a quality tackle in this game, it doesn't matter what your age is. You are going to get paid good amount of money. And Teron Armstead is going to be one of those guys, especially if he has a really good year this season like he's had. So
32 years old.
32 is Armstead?
Trent Williams.
Trent Williams. Yeah, he got paid at 32, man. That's inspiring. Right?
It was a long deal, too.
6 years, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, he's pretty much getting paid till he's 38 years old, which is great for him. Good for him. And, I mean, the Niners obviously liked what they... And he's going to give you at least a solid 2 to 3 years coming up. So, I mean, I think the money is going to be well spent regardless. But, yeah, there you go. No matter how old you are, if you're a tackle in this league and you're fantastic, you're going to get money no matter how old you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't agree more. And the Saints will have some questions with those 4 guys in particular, Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, Ramczyk, and Teron Armstead. Going to be interesting to see. And as you mentioned, we see that Mike Thomas, he didn't get his deal until later on in the offseason. Kamara was the day before. I mean, every year when Drew Brees' deal was up,
yeah,
we were waiting well into this time of the year, mid-July, and we finally get word that he's signed. So,
and thank God with Breeze, it was never a thing where we were like, oh, is he going to go to another team? Like, he doesn't really have a contract with the team anymore. You always knew, like, he was just waiting to see what the Saints were going to offer, and we knew it was never like, oh, yeah, Breeze is going to be weighing options at a different team.
No,
he was always sticking with the Saints, which made it really, now when we got these big free agent guys coming up, it's like, oh, dude, these guys could leave. They're not Drew Brees. They're not loyal like that, which is, understandable. But yeah, that was a good thing about Drew Brees is like, yeah, it was stressful whenever he wasn't on the books with his contract, but then you were like, yeah, he's got to be coming back.
You knew he was, you knew he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And let's talk about now. Let's shift over to, with minicamp now rolling up here. Interesting, Juwan Johnson, the receiver out of Oregon, who played with the Saints last year. Actually got quite a few snaps, a lot more than expected. Making the move to tight end, and this was something Nick Underhill, kind of keyed in on. This could really happen. He's now shifting to tight end. Of course, obviously, Jared Cook is gone. Josh Hill retired, leaving Trautman, Nick Van Nett, really is your top 2 dogs at tight end. I mean, we've seen this happen before. Dan Arnold as comes to mind in recent memory as a guy who was a wide receiver in college, came and played tight end, had some bright moments, really thrived in Arizona, and now he's in Carolina with the Panthers. Juwan Johnson, realistically speaking, do you think he has a shot to make this roster and maybe even make an impact?
It's tough. And looking at I think it is easier for him to make the roster as a tight end.
Yes.
Simply because, he's 6'4", 240 pounds. He's got the size for tight end. He's also not a great route runner. And if you want to be a good receiver in this league, especially on the Saints team, you have to at least be a decent route runner. Now, they need a big target, which is exactly what he is. So, yes, moving him to tight end, I think is the smarter move. Because, if you look at the wide receiver depth chart, Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris, you got Marquez Callaway, Low Jordan Humphrey, and then Quan Baker, and then Jake Lampman, Jalen McCleskey are also on the roster as well. So, you have a lot of guys there. For tight end, Nick Van Nett, Adam Troutman, Garrett Griffin, Dylan Soner, who is the rookie out of Iowa State, and then you also got Ethan Wolf. So, there's also a lot of names on there. But, I would probably take, if you move Garrett Griffin to like some sort of fullback hybrid, if you want to keep him on the roster since, he's been a part of the team for a few years now. Mm-hmm. Adam Troutman and Nick Van Nett give you your, tight end 1, tight end 2. Josh Hill is now filled by Nick Van Nett. And then you have the rookie Dylan Soner. If you like him that much, he was just an undrafted rookie. He doesn't mean he's going to make the roster. Juwan Johnson, who got called up from practice squad multiple times last year due to injuries, also an undrafted free agent from 2020, think has a little bit more of an advantage there. So I could definitely see Juwan Johnson making the roster, especially if the Saints want to keep 4 tight ends. Now, if they're only keeping 3 and they're leaving Garrett Griffin there, that's your 3. That's Adam Troutman, Nick Van Nett. I think Garrett Griffin makes it.
Yeah.
And Juwan Johnson's still going to be eligible for the practice squad, which will be great. Same with Dylan Soner. So it's like, you could always keep these guys on the team, just not on the active roster, and have them called up in case of injury. But in terms of the active roster, it's going to be tough for Juwan Johnson to make it. If they keep 4 tight ends, I think he has a really good shot. But I think that we're going to probably see Juwan Johnson on the practice squad to start this year if he's not cut. But I think the move to tight end is the smartest move for sure. He's got the size. and the contested catch ability that you want out of a lot of tight ends.
Yeah.
Just not the route running ability, which is why he's being moved from receiver down to there. But I like it. I think it's a smart move, and I think it gives him a better chance at making the roster.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he really will.
There's some great points there. When we had Ross Jackson calling on our radio show last week, we brought up the same question to him, and the first thing he said was, would Juwan Johnson go into tight end and instantly gratifies the chances he makes his roster as a tight end?
Mm-hmm.
I think the wide receiver room is too crowded, and I think the Saints are really excited about Traquan Smith this year, and Marcos Callaway. Taking that big step big leap in year 2. Excuse me. And with Juwan Johnson, I mean, in the Saints offense as a tight end, as big as he is, there's only one thing he has to master, in my opinion. He's got if he can master a seam right up the middle, that is a staple. Go back to the Marcus Colston days,
right?
The Jimmy Graham days. Even Ben Watson ran some mean seams and had success in this offense. So if you bring him in strictly as a hybrid tight end / big body receiver, kind of like, I think the best example is if you go watch Dallas Cowboys film, go look at the wide receiver Noah Brown out of Ohio State. He's been with the team for a few years now. He basically is a wide receiver who plays. He's listed as a wide receiver, but he plays tight end. He is up on the line, up in the line, standing up, and he's always blocking, or he's running his seams up the middle,
right?
Or he's out wide, in a tight formation where there's only 1 or 2 receivers on the field. He's out there wide, blocking down corners or cracking down on linebackers. That's what he does, and he's good at it. So if you want a good taste of what Juwan Johnson could look like in this offense, go look up some Noah Brown tape from Dallas and look how the Cowboys utilize him as a wide receivers, tight end, whatever you want to call it. But that's just what he does. Yeah. So, and as you mentioned, I think if the Saints, if they were to use Garrett Griffin in sort of the hybrid fullback, or I guess H-back, if you will.
Yeah.
He could surely rank the rosters in H-back. That leaves you with Trotman, Nick Vannett, and Dylan Schooner is interesting because he reminds me a lot of Josh Hill when he came out undrafted out of where did Josh Hill come from? Iowa?
Was it Iowa? I'm going to look it up right now. You can keep talking. I'll let you know.
Okay, I think it's one of those schools up there in the middle of nowhere.
Happy retirement.
Hey, a king. He was critical to this offense.
Idaho State.
That's what it was. Okay. But yeah, I think if Schroeder could crack the roster as a very similar to how Josh Hill came into the room with Jimmy Graham and Ben Watson in 2013 when he came. So it's gonna be a very crowded spot. And I think it's a spot nobody really true, at least with quarterback, we can go, okay, it's going to be Jameis or Taysom. You look at cornerback too, it's going to be Paulson Debo or Patrick Robinson, right?
Mm-hmm.
A tight end, nobody really knows what the true depth chart's going to look like come week 1. Because you want to say Adam Trotman, right? That's the guy you want to say it is. But we really, truly just don't know yet.
Exactly.
It's going to be fun to watch and try to camp these tight ends play out. Anything else in particular, minicamp wise, training camp wise, you're excited about watching?
Well, speaking of tight ends, I know Adam Trotman did say recently when he was talking to the media that he expects to take on the workload at the tight end position this upcoming season. So he's been preparing for that. And then, when you look at the Saints depth chart, I mean, who is their red zone target? They don't really have a big red zone. I mean, Traquan Smith is a touchdown getter, not really a red zone target guy. I mean, I guess he's got the size. Michael Thomas, of course, is great anywhere on the field. But it's like, Juwan Johnson would be that perfect kind of really big bodied guy to get, easy or somewhat contested catches there in the red zone. For somebody like Winston or even Taysom Hill who throws the ball. But so I like the move. But Adam Trotman I think is going to end up being the starter, and I think I'm expecting big things from him. Yeah, I mean, the training camp battles, which we will talk about more in depth on episodes, linebacker battle between Pete Warner and Zach Bond there.
Yep.
Because, again, the Saints love to run a lot of 4-2-5 defensive formations. They love that extra defensive back portion, and that's going to go to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a lot of the times this season. So really, it's going to be Demario Davis starting alongside either Pete Warner or Zach Bond. It really depends on what the Saints want to do. And I'm sure Zach Bond and Pete Warner will split snaps at that position regardless of who gets the start throughout most of the season. And also, Paulson Adebo has been playing a lot of slot cornerback, I guess, or nickel cornerback, if you want to call it, during training camp so far at OTAs. So that is something interesting. I know Ross Jackson talked about it on the latest Locked On Saints podcast. But the Saints essentially saying, if you have a guy like Adebo who can kind of do everything, granted Adebo, you might argue he's a little too lengthy, quote unquote, to take on a speed receiver there on the inside. But if you put Adebo against a tight end, I think that he will do very well on the inside. So, if you have a guy who can do that, might as well play him and experiment. So I liked that aspect of OTAs, that they were kind of putting Adebo around wherever they could. So other than that, not much going on for the OTAs. Knock on wood, but right now no major injuries or nothing crazy like that. So we are fortunate so far.
Exactly. And the cool thing about the Saints doing OTAs and mini camps for rookies and for the vets is that most of that was classroom technique stuff.
Yes.
Not really big on the field.
Thanks to COVID, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or partially COVID, partially just, they're getting in the swing of things. So
yeah, because I know a lot of teams were out there practicing during, OTAs and minicamp. But for the Saints, it was mostly in classroom stuff, which is really cool because you don't want to see your guys.
Yes.
You don't want to see the guys out there in unnecessary time,
right,
where they could a greater risk the chance of injury, because you just don't want to see that with those guys. Let's talk about cornerback too really quick. I know you touched on it with Paulson Adebo playing
right
a little more nickel, it looked like so far. And if you listen to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson when he talked to the media, or CD Deuce, if you will, maybe CD Uno for all we know.
There you go.
I don't even want that jersey change. I think it's really interesting when Chauncey Gardner mentioned Patrick Robinson several times, talking about he's a guy who, he's played now 10 years in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes to be part of a great secondary. And he kept mentioning he's a guy who can easily, take the responsibility of playing outside corner. We saw it sparingly this year, and when injuries happened, he stepped up. He did his part. He looked good. So maybe if Paulson Adebo is not ready for week 1 to be the outside corner, could we see Patrick Robinson easily opposite Marshawn Lattimore?
I mean, I bet you that will probably how the year will start out will probably be Robinson starting there. I mean, I would love to see Adebo ball out in training camp, but yeah, it would take a lot because Patrick Robinson can play well on the outside. Of course, when he was in New Orleans for majority of his career, he was a nickel guy playing on the inside, but his veteran savviness, and if he's able to stay healthy, again, I mean, his injury for the Saints has just been such bad luck for the team, or else I think that we would be talking a little bit differently about this cornerback too if he had stayed healthy, just how talented he is. So I think that if he's healthy, he's going to be the starting outside cornerback, which is great. And you got PJ Williams there now playing mainly free safety, which I like that move. I dig it because his man-to-man coverage skills are not great. But if you play him a lot of zone, a little bit of a smaller, faster guy, I think that he's more fit for free safety. So that really leaves the door open for Adebo to take it from Robinson for starting, but Saints will probably end up going with the veteran there at outside. I think that's how the year will start, but Adebo will definitely get his chance at taking over that spot. We'll just have to see how it goes. After those guys, though, after those three, so Marshawn Lattimore, Patrick Robinson, Paulson Adebo, who's a rookie. You got Keith Washington Jr., Grant Haley, Deuce Wallace, Ken Crawley, Bryce Thompson, Lawrence Woods. And 3 of those guys are undrafted free agents from this past draft, and 2 of them are undrafted from 2020. And And then Ken Crawley, of course, has been one of the worst cornerbacks in the league when he actually plays. So it's not good after those three. So I don't care who starts on the outside to start the year. I just want those three to be healthy all year, or else our secondary will go to, you know what, really quickly. Now, Drake Kirkpatrick has been in for a visit. Richard Sherman still is there as a free agent, saying that he wants to sign with the contender, so he's probably going to wait until training, which, again, I don't blame these veterans for waiting out training camp to sign with the team, because according to NFL guys, training camp just freaking sucks. And if you're already a veteran and you know teams want you, why put yourself through that when you can, just kind of go right in and play well right away and then also secure your bag?
And not to mention, if some of these guys get hurt throughout training camp, the player instantly has leverage.
That is a really good point, too. Yeah, because then teams start to get a little more desperate to get a guy in. So,
and not to mention, this is, you got to figure, this is a really weird free agency period where, teams were cash strapped because of the cap shrunk. There were no real free agent visits. Everything was done through Zoom and whatnot.
Right.
So you still have guys like I just do not get how KJ Wright is still a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sherman you can make a case for, but KJ Wright, he is an absolute beast when it comes to coverage.
KJ Wright and one other guy, I'm going to look it up real quick, but KJ Wright and there's one other guy where I'm like, how has he not been signed?
Another guy, Melvin Ingram for me.
Oh, that's who it is. Yeah, Melvin Ingram.
Is it really?
How has Melvin Ingram not? Yeah, I was looking at the list the other day, and I was like, Melvin Ingram has not been signed yet.
Yeah.
Same with Steven Nelson. Granted, Steven Nelson, I'm surprised he hasn't been signed yet. Justin Houston, granted, I know he's 32, but still. Yeah, KJ Wright, Olivier Vernon.
He showed flashes in that rotation up there in Indy. He can still play Houston.
Malik Hooker.
Yeah, exactly. Tons of quality free agents. And most of the guys are probably going to have to wait till after training camp during training camp or close to the preseason to sign somewhere.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and then, the shrunk cap, I think, affects it the most. I mean, obviously, a lot of guys are signing one-year deals so that they can get more money in free agency next offseason. But now with these free agents who are kind of sitting around, it's like teams only have so much money to give out now after they've signed their draft classes, after they've gotten their first round of free agents, and then now second round of free agents. So that's probably also a reason why, but just expect these free agents will probably just be signing one-year deals and then waiting. Or, who knows, maybe these guys wait and don't play this year and wait for the big cap hit to come next year. Wouldn't be the smartest thing, I don't think, because then, it's like, oh, you haven't played football and, almost by the time the next season starts, it's going to be like, a year and a half, almost 2 years since you've played football. But, I mean, that's just how crazy the cap situation was this season due to COVID, so... Exactly.
Could not agree more. Dang. We just covered about everything, I think.
Yes.
That's just about to wrap things up this week. Later on this week, we'll have some articles going a little more in depth with training camp battles, what we would like to see. And then, of course, we'll have another episode dropping later this week on those set training camp battles. Dane, any last words here before we sign off?
No, I'm excited to break down more training camp stuff in the future. Happy to be back. Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC.
Drop those 5 stars.
Yes, and 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Yep. Yeah, be sure to rate us. We're
be honest.
On a lot of platforms now. So,
yeah, be honest. We love that.
Yes.
Just,
whatever you want to hear as well. If there's anything you want to hear, shoot us tweet at SaintsFPC. So
for sure. Well, I'm Alec. This is Dayton. We'll see you guys later this week with another episode breaking down training camp battles. You've been listening to the Full Pro Saints podcast.